Perfect. Thank you so much.
Hi.
I appreciate you joining me today. First off, you did a brilliant job with the documentary. I thought it was
Oh,
definitely fascinating.
thank you.
And, just to learn so much about, a member of the band that we may not have, heard that much about now was there a reason that you felt that this was a story that you wanted to tell?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was a time of incredible um, invention artistically, and a whole new era of music started up. And I guess the '60s was an amazing time for the arts, and at the same time, Brian Jones, who started the Stones off, who founded the Stones, was sort of barely recognized on their 60th anniversary. I mean, I guess people have just forgotten about him, or, it was, he died, what, 50 years before. And the Stones, having been around so long, and still doing brilliant albums, um, people just assume it's Mick and Keith rather than. So it just seemed to me really interesting to dig back into that time and look at the person who founded the Stones and kind of look at why they sort of just disappeared, and to understand what kind of person they were and what they brought to the band and why they kind of left the band.
Absolutely. I think too, it was so interesting to hear that they wanted to go in two different directions with things, like he wanted to keep everything as more of like a rhythm and blues kind of thing, whereas in I feel like, with Mick and Keith, they turned it into like a pop kind of thing. And, you
Yeah,
could see where the controversy would have come in. It's just a shame that it did have to end the way it did.
yeah, it was very unfortunate. And I think I think Brian was a complicated guy who, and it was amazingly important for him to be recognized as the leader and founder of the Stones. And when he was, in a way, eclipsed by Mick and Keith, um, instead of being able to celebrate their success and the colossal success of the band, he, because I guess of his own insecurity, felt very, resentful, and wasn't happy about not being the leader. So there was a sort of un, unfortunate competition between him and Mick and Keith, and he obviously was not the natural leader anymore. And
Right.
when you compare him to just that unbelievable charisma of Mick Jagger, it's pretty hard to. I mean, I think anybody would have a hard time competing with it.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. And I found that, the letter from his father at the end, where he, finally seemed to, I guess, accept him. And, it's such a tragic way to, end the film, but also, the whole childhood, discussion in the beginning was also like the perfect beginning. So it was, great to see those things. It's just a shame that I feel like he didn't realize that.
no, he didn't, and I guess it's that age-old, story of the child wanting the approval of the parents, and
Right.
like so many children, the parents didn't approve, and he, wasn't strong enough or um, to really be able to rise above it. I guess he wasn't confident enough. And so it seemed like almost like an old kind of biblical story, even though it was about the Rolling Stones. It just
Mm.
seemed this age old story of each generation wanting to do something different, but at the same time wanting to have the approval of the generation before and their parents.
So, I mean, how long did the overall filming process take for you, to get your hands on all the archival stuff and kind of line up all the interviews and the people that were willing to talk for the project?
Well, just the archive took about 2.5 years of
Wow.
people. working every day trying to get it. Um, it was, there was very little archive out there that was new, that hadn't been seen before. And, we really wanted to find this archive that showed the Stones, relaxing, and footage that hadn't been seen before, that was really emotionally involving and telling, and wasn't, you don't want to make a film everyone says, oh, I've seen that. And,
Yeah.
we had to scour literally all over the world. Fortunately, they toured a lot. So there was quite a lot of, but it was all sort of buried in archives in the middle of nowhere.
My gosh.
It just took ages and ages to get. And a lot of it was shot on film and had to be, transferred. And it was a complicated process. And I hadn't realized how difficult archive films really are, especially older archive films. I mean, they're fascinating to do, but it's a whole discipline unto itself, quite apart from just telling a normal story. So that took a long time. And then it took a long time getting the confidence of, some of the people in the film. It took a long time getting Bill, for example.
Okay.
I think he's, very, very happy with the film because he kind of loved Brian and felt Brian was very underappreciated and hadn't really received the recognition that he deserved. And I think Bill made a great contribution, but it took quite a long time to persuade him to be in the film.
It's funny because like you mentioned that you could see like there was like at least one scene in there where he had a little bit of hesitation to talk about the stuff with Jimi Hendrix, or the other side I was like, oh, you can see it just a little bit. He's like, should I or should I not?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, because Bill's a great collector. He's kind of like the archivist of the Stones, and he had some material of Hendrix and Brian playing together. I think it's in the film actually now.
Yeah.
But at that point, he was like, am I going to let these people have this footage or
Yeah.
not?
So I mean, you have this knack for being able to take on these brilliant yet tortured subjects and kind of, be able to tell their story in a way that we are able to relate to them. Like, what is that process like for you on your side?
Well, I'm not naturally a very, very patient person, but you have to be because the process kind of defines itself, and you kind of have to just go along with it and find a way of making it work, or allowing people to come to you when they actually feel comfortable coming to you. And if you push too hard, you kind of lose the film, and so, and each film is different. And I think because a lot of this stuff happened such a long time ago, it had its own kind of particular problems. And I guess that's why it took at least twice as long as most of the other films have.
Okay.
I think a lot of it was the archive, and then we filmed all these people, and they, a lot of the people were so beautiful in the 60s, and now they're all, in their late 80s and not so beautiful.
Okay.
And people would be so troubled to see how people had changed, that it kind of pulled them out of the film.
Yeah.
And we had to re-edit a lot of the film and put even more archive in to kind of keep it all in the 60s rather than going backwards and forwards between now and then. I think it made it a better film, but it just took a lot of time.
I can only imagine. And, I know that, reading up and being a music fan myself, I know that there was a lot of, a lot of controversy that did surround, Brian Jones' death, but I noticed that was kind of left out of the death? Was there a reason for that, or is it just because it is such speculation?
Well, I obviously read everything and looked at the other
Right.
films, and I talked to people about it. Um, and I just felt that Brian didn't need anyone to murder him. He was doing an excellent job on finishing himself off. He was not looking after himself. He lived on a diet of sausage rolls and HP sauce, which is enough to kill anyone after a short period of time. And when I spoke to Bill Wyman, Bill had spent a lot of time with Anna Wallen, who was best friends with Ingrid, Bill's girlfriend, who had stayed with them immediately after the drowning and had talked endlessly about fishing Brian out of the pool and trying to resuscitate him and all the rest of it. And then 10 years later, she wrote this book saying he'd been murdered.
Yeah.
And why do you think she wrote that book? She'd run out of money.
Right.
And, I sort of, Bill said she told him the same story over and over and over in the 4 days that she was staying with him immediately after it happened. He had absolutely no doubt about what had happened. And, I felt that was the most likely explanation, that he used to like taking these mandrakes, and he liked being in that sort of twilight between being asleep and not being asleep.
Okay. Yeah.
What he enjoyed. And, I think he'd taken it at the wrong time and went to sleep, went to sleep in the pool. That's what everyone felt had happened.
Absolutely. I think it makes perfect sense given just, looking at all of the situational things that led up to that. It does definitely make sense, but it's like you had this like whole swirling internet rumor thing. I'm like, oh, here we go. Another
That's
controversy.
what always happened. Yeah.
So, I mean, how happy are you with the feedback that the film's been receiving so
Well,
far?
I'm really delighted. You never know at the end of a film what people are, because you're always so close to it, even though you try and show it to test audiences and stuff. But it's, I think it is very much unique in that it really documents the start of, the world's kind of greatest rock and roll band. And it's a very intimate film. I really wanted to make an intimate, moving film. And it's obviously gratifying that audiences have been really moved by it and been really interested by the film. It's sort of, yeah, I mean, yeah, no, it's obviously it's great because it doesn't always happen that way.
Right. Was there anything that didn't make the cut from the film that you kind of wanted to see in there?
No, not really. I think, we were very lucky in that we managed to get quite a lot of performance footage, and we got quite a lot of music into it. I was worried we wouldn't get enough, but there's a lot.
Mhm.
And I think because it was done in the 60s, before the super managers came in and the super record companies came in, and because they were doing covers, we could get a lot of material into the film that, if it had been done in the 70s or the 80s, or, it would have been impossible. So there wasn't that much really that I would have liked to have had in that we didn't really get. We were working on it a long time, so I was, and many cuts. I mean, I'm the kind of guy, unfortunately, who mixes a film and then looks at it again and thinks, oh, this isn't right. And then you take it all to bits again and
Yeah.
start cutting. So after I'd done that a couple of times, I was pretty sure I'd got everything into it that I wanted, including having gone madly over budget. Yeah.
Well, you did a brilliant job with the film. I really did enjoy it as a music fan and somebody that's just fascinated with a human story like that. It was very good. Is there anything else in the works for you right now coming up?
Well, not sort of very immediately. I wanted to get this one out and take a bit of a break, but there's I think I might just do something completely different next. Um, more. Sometimes it's quite nice to do something that you haven't done before. That's a challenge. I feel I just need to maybe not do a music thing
Okay.
because a couple of those, or two, three, four, five, uh, six, uh, and yeah, do something. I don't know. Maybe do more like a uh, environmental film or something like that.
Definitely. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking a few minutes to speak with me. I appreciate it.
So lovely to talk to you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello.